will Zakai Zeigler have a spot on Tennessee basketball when the next season rolls around, and will that be him being a player for Rick Barnes or just maybe somebody on the coaching staff? Just a quick update, a month after Zakai Zeigler sues the NCAA for a 5th year of eligibility. Jimmy, initial reaction, or I guess what's the main thing people need to know about this lawsuit?
There are a lot of tentacles about this one, but the NCAA, ever since its origins, to my knowledge, has given players 5 years in which to play 4.
Mm-hmm.
And that has been the way it's been forever. You do get an extra year, that extra 5th year, if you redshirted.
Yep.
Maybe you had a season-ending injury.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the NCAA in recent years has been more agreeable to, if you've had 3 season-ending injuries, you might get 7 years. Okay,
Yeah.
So we've seen some of that. I think it's going to be tough.
Like Keenan Peely.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
It's going to be tough to win this case. We'll see where it goes. You got to have. I don't think it's just a court ruling.
Mm-hmm.
You got other things out there. For example, with the House settlement, that includes 5 years to play 4.
Yes.
And Tennessee has agreed to that. The SEC has agreed to that. Every school in the country has agreed to that. So if one judge in Tennessee says no, he should get a 5th year, he cannot be denied the opportunity for name, image, and likeness money, then is Tennessee going to balk against everybody else? They said before the House settlement, Tennessee did, that it would agree to the settlement.
Yeah.
Well, that's part of the settlement.
Mm-hmm.
So Tennessee cannot be I shouldn't say that you cannot be, should not be a part of supporting Zeigler in this case, because you've already said you agree to the 5 years to play 4, and if you played 4, that's it. So that's a big part of this. Zeigler, from what I was told earlier, was trying to point a little bit to the Diego Pavia situation at Vanderbilt, but that's completely different because he went to junior college for 2 years.
Right.
And Zakai didn't.
Right.
Now, the thing that would be similar is that Pavia, part of his suit was he wanted to earn NIL money.
Yeah.
Okay? And Zeigler, according to his attorneys, I believe it was between 2.5 and 4 million is what he would be able to earn if he came back for his last year,
Mm-hmm.
which makes me wonder how much did he make last year?
I know. That's a ballpark.
Yeah. So that's the situation. There are reasons for me to think he's not going to win it, and a part of it is, I can tell you this with confidence, he doesn't have the support of the commissioner of the SEC, Greg Sankey, because when I asked Sankey about it, he said that argument's been around for over 30 years.
Yeah.
He said, I was a part of that in 1992 and 1998 when I was with the Southland Conference. When I came to the SEC as an associate commissioner in 2006 or 7, he was talking to Mike Shula, the Alabama head coach, who wanted a 5th year. And he said it never got passed on to the NCAA for a complete vote. It never got that far because there wasn't enough support. And so Sankey said, basically, he's past that. He's not. That's not even on his radar.
Yeah. And it's not to say that it won't ever happen. I think it goes back to our baseball conversation where it's just Tennessee's short end of the stick that they end up continuing to find, because earlier in January, I mean, the NCAA, there was reports from guys, I think at On3, that were saying that the NCAA was considering 5 years of eligibility. Right. And that kind of continued, got a little steam, and then you have the House settlement. And I think that influences, of course, like you were saying, the NCAA to kind of pause its conversations about 5 years of eligibility, not just 5 and 4. And I think maybe that doesn't mean it won't ever happen. I just think, unfortunately, for Zakai Zeigler, he's too early to bring this conversation back to the table. It's just not the right time.
The timing, you've hit it on the nail on the head. The timing's not good for him because let's say you're a football team and you lost 18 seniors.
Right.
And they want to come back. Not all of them going to the NFL. Well, you can't take them all back because you filled your rosters with transfers and with high school recruits, and so you can't exceed that roster limit, whatever that's going to be.
That'd be a conversation for another episode.
Yeah. I talked to Bruce Pearl about this, Auburn's coach. He said, I like the idea of having 5 years of eligibility, but not this year. He said, I lost 8 seniors. He said, now I've got a full roster. I can't bring these 8 seniors back.
No.
He said, now next year, if you want to do it next year, let's do it. So
you need time to plan. Yeah.
The timing of it is not.
It's like we'd love to have you back, but
there's
somebody in your seat already.
So that's the issue that he's facing. And there are a couple other coaches that I talked to that favor that, but not right now because of the roster situation that they would be having to face for the 2025-26 seasons. But for the next year, could it possibly go in that direction? Yes. Even though there's a House settlement right now, that doesn't mean they can't amend that if the conferences and the schools are agreeable.
And I think what you were saying with Diego Pavia is just like he maybe has had past settlements that maybe played at his favor, and it makes it easier for the NCAA to grant a blanket statement that they can get an extra year from JUCO. And I think that what makes Alberto Suno's case with Tennessee baseball a little bit more frustrating because he did come from JUCO, and that maybe feels a bit more apples to apples, whereas Zakai's apples to oranges. You could look to recent other ones. I was kind of looking around, and you could go to UNC and Duke. They had a couple of players on their football teams that wanted an extra year because of injury, or you go to Wisconsin, and because he was at the D2 level, like that cornerback wanted an extra year. There's just no one else that has set a precedent in Zakai Zeigler's avenue that helps bolster his case. So sometimes it is tougher being the first one to sue in this manner, where a lot of it is just because of economic interest for NIL, and he says it causes irreparable injury if he doesn't get his 5th year.
Financially.
Yes.
Yep.
Not actual injury. Yeah. Maybe the conversation could have been a little different if he talked about his actual season-ending injury and maybe how that could influence wanting another year.
But if you get an extra year, you can only play 20% of the season based on injury.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So that's been in the books a long time as well.
Okay.
So, and it used to be the injury had to occur in the first half of the season. Now they don't consider that.
Okay.
So they have now gone to, in football, for example, you can play 4 games without you can still redshirt and play 4 games.
Okay.
So it was a
maybe
percentage
he just gets
basis.
200,000.
So here,
base 20% gets 200,000.
So think about this with Ziegler. So when he signed and came to Tennessee, and he didn't know this, but Tennessee planned to redshirt him.
Right.
Remember?
Yes, I remember that conversation.
He had Kennedy Chandler.
Uh-huh.
Think about if Tennessee had actually redshirted Ziegler, and he gets not only the extra year but the extra cash.
Right. Because NIL and paying student athletes is now legal,
So him playing as a true freshman is costing him $2.5 to $4 million. So, I wonder who he's going to sue over that. You shouldn't have played me, Tennessee.
So
you should have redshirted me. Didn't you see
I wasn't
this
totally
coming?
ready. I needed more time to develop.
Now, if he came back, would Tennessee be a better basketball team? Absolutely. What happens to Jacoby Gillespie, though?
Right.
The player that transferred in from Maryland. He's from Greenville, played at Belmont. Very good. Probably maybe the best point guard in the transfer portal. Does he stick around if Ziegler comes back?
All I'm saying is I didn't come to Tennessee to be the number 2.
Exactly.
So.
And he had a lot of offers out there. So
to be the number 1.
Now, how would they look at that? The transfer portal window for him is gone, right? Mm-hmm. Could he file an exception on this, saying, hey, I got misled?
The NCAA was going to be like, Tennessee, I mean, they are so messy. They're always in our office.
So I think that's another issue that you would have to face. So I would be very, well, I just said earlier that I wouldn't be surprised with anything in college athletics.
Are you already going back on that?
Yeah, I'm going back on it because I don't see a real strong avenue for him to win this, considering he doesn't have key support. He doesn't have it from the commissioner of the SEC. He doesn't have it from coaches in the SEC.
Yeah.
He doesn't, according to the House settlement, he doesn't have it from Tennessee.
Right. So
I don't see how he's going to win this. But it is a lot about the money. One of his arguments was it's not fair that Diego Pavia. It's not fair. Let me take that back. That if you redshirt, you get a 5th year, but if you don't redshirt, you don't get a 5th year. That's one of his arguments, and that's something that the NCAA has held as a standard for years, and the House settlement has backed it up. So it looks very doubtful to me that Ziegler would get another year.
Yeah, I mean, because at the end of the day, I mean, if the argument is it's arbitrary, I feel like for most things in life, you could break it down to arbitrary. Why do I have to work 40 hours a week? Why not 37? Like, how do we come up with this? Why is that the perfect number? Why is it 5 years to play 4 and not just 4 and 4? And I think maybe you get to the point where it's like, can athletes just play as long as they're pursuing a career and an education? Mm-hmm. So maybe you get a PhD and you're like a Josh Dobbs and you need to be in school for a while and you play for 6-7 years. If you're still performing and you're helping your team win, I don't think that team would necessarily care. But does that mean that, because you have to say, like, well, this has always been a line in the sand. If we get rid of that, what is the new line in the sand, and how does that then not become arbitrary as well? Is it just you get to play as long as you're pursuing an education? Is that a clear, non-arbitrary argument?
It's a slippery slope if you allow this to occur.
Yeah, because I would prefer 4 days work weeks. I would like to have 4-day work weeks.
You would?
Yeah, maybe
Yeah,
I'll
tell
sue
me
on
that
that
before
too.
we partner up. One of the things, well, the reason that the NCAA went to this is that you're expected to get your degree in 4 years.
Yeah, at a 4-year institution. Yeah.
And they gave you a bonus of a 5th year if you redshirted or you got hurt.
To prioritize your education.
So that was the thinking behind why they picked those numbers. And I think those numbers are going to stay at least for a while. But as you said, and I think there's merit to this, there is a chance they may go to a 5th year of eligibility at some point.
Yeah.
I just don't think it's right now.
Yeah, because they need the House settlement to settle.
Yeah.
And they need all of that to kind of see how that plays out. So it could be several years before they ever get to 5-year conversations again. As Greg Sankey says, it's been going on for decades. So what's a few more decades?
Yeah.
And speaking of the House settlement and how that dust is settling, we'll have that on our next episode, and how that impacts Title IX, Tennessee, revenue sharing, all the nitty-gritty stuff, and what you need to know. We'll get to that next week.